The Unforgettable Disappearance of Lena Whitmore, Sandpoint, Idaho, 2017. On a cold March evening in 2017, 22-year-old Lena Whitmore vanished without a sound along the snow-dusted edge of Lake Pend Oreille. There were no witnesses, signal, or sign that she was ever there. Nestled in the rugged northern tip of Idaho, Sandpoint is a quiet town bordered by pine forests and glassy waters. Tourists come in the summer for the lake. Locals stay for the mountains. But beneath the picturesque tranquility lies an unshakable mystery, one that still lingers in the minds of residents and investigators alike. Lena Mae Whitmore was, by all accounts, a gentle and introspective young woman, born and raised in Sandpoint. She was known for her soft voice, artistic flair, and a habit of wandering alone through the wooded trails that surround the town. At 22, she lived in a modest rental on the outskirts of town near Baldy Mountain Road and worked part-time at a local cafe while attending North Idaho College. She kept a small circle of friends, preferred solitude over social gatherings, and often took solitary walks near the lake with her sketchbook and headphones. Lena's behavior, though still reserved, had shown subtle changes in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She had withdrawn further, skipped shifts at work, and was reportedly seen standing alone for long periods near the lake's edge, staring out over the water. When asked about it by a co-worker, she allegedly replied, "It just feels like something's pulling me out there." Lena was last seen on Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. According to the Sandpoint Police Department's incident report hashtag 17-3049B, she clocked out her shift at the Dockside Cafe at exactly 5:42 p.m. Surveillance footage showed her leaving through the back entrance in a dark green parka and black jeans, her sketchbook tucked under her arm. Outside, the sun descended behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the snow. She was never seen again. Lena's roommate, Alicia Kern, was reported missing the following afternoon after she failed to return home or respond to texts. Alicia described Lena as someone who needed space, but always came back. By the next morning, officers were knocking on doors and canvassing Lena's usual walking routes, particularly the rugged shoreline path between Sandpoint Marina and Dog Beach, an area she visited often. Initial search efforts focused on the wooded trails around the Pend Oreille Bay Trail, a secluded 2-mile stretch hugging the lake's edge. The trail, used mainly by locals, winds between steep forested slopes and the icy water. Volunteers, bloodhounds, and even drones combed the area, but no trace of Lena was found. No footprints, personal items, or even a broken branch or disturbance in the snow. The only clue was a set of partial tracks leading off the trail toward the lake, and then abruptly stopping. Investigators noted that the snow had been light that week, with nighttime lows dipping into the teens. Hypothermia was possible, but unlikely, given Lena's experience with the outdoors and the absence of body or signs of distress. The lake was partially frozen that time of year. Authorities considered the possibility of an accidental fall through the ice. Idaho State Police deployed sonar equipment, dragging portions of the lake near where the tracks ended. Still nothing. No clothing. Nobody. No break in the ice thick enough to account for someone slipping in. It was as though Lena had vanished into thin air. By the end of the week, her disappearance had made local headlines. A community that prided itself on knowing everyone now faced a confounding silence. Posters went up across Bonner County. Candlelight vigils were held at the town's small Episcopal church. And a Facebook page titled Finding Lena Whitmore quickly gathered over 5,000 followers. The case was officially escalated to endangered missing on March 6, 2017. FBI involvement was limited at first, standard protocol in missing adult cases, without evidence of foul play. However, Special Agent Curtis Halbert from the Coeur d'Alene Field Office reviewed the file at the request of the Bonner County Sheriff's Department. "We couldn't ignore how completely she had vanished," Halbert later said in a local interview. "It didn't add up. No personal motive, no criminal history, no digital breadcrumbs. Indeed, the digital trail was as barren as the woods she walked through." Lena's cell phone, an older model Samsung Galaxy, last pinged a tower near the east side of the lake at 6:17 p.m., less than an hour after she left work. Then nothing. No calls, no data usage, no bank activity. Her social media accounts, minimal to begin with, showed no recent logins. Investigators reviewed her internet history and found a pattern of art tutorials, ambient music playlists, and occasional posts on forums for anxiety and insomnia. There were no red flags, no threats, no connections to dangerous people. Her family, mother Lena Whitmore and older brother Caleb, were devastated. They described Lena as sensitive, introverted, and often plagued by anxiety, but never suicidal or impulsive. She was planning to transfer to Boise in the fall. Janine said in a 2018 interview, she had goals. She was saving up. She didn't just walk away. Still, that remained the official theory in the absence of physical evidence. The Sandpoint Police Department's final update in July 2017 noted no indications of foul play at this time and left the case open but cold. Behind the scenes, however, specific details kept local investigators uneasy. One such detail was an anonymous tip called in 3 weeks after Lena's disappearance. When she vanished, the unidentified male caller claimed to have seen a young woman matching Lena's description near a closed construction site off Syringa Heights Road. She looked confused, just walking back and forth near the fence, the caller said. By the time officers arrived, the site was empty. No cameras, no evidence. The tip couldn't be confirmed, but it stirred quiet speculation that Lena may have wandered far from her usual path, or been lured there. There was also a report from a retired Forest Service ranger who believed he saw a young woman near the trailhead 2 days after the initial search had concluded. She looked out of place, he said. No coat, no pack, just standing there, staring into the trees. The sighting was dismissed as mistaken identity, likely another hiker, but the detail gnawed at investigators. The most unsettling rumor, however, came from within Lena's journal. Recovered from her bedroom during the initial sweep, the notebook was mainly filled with pencil sketches, trees, faces, water, but on the last few pages in smudged graphite were fragmented lines that investigators never publicly released. They read like journal entries, but were more poetic than confessional. Something in the woods. It sees the lake the way I do. I dreamed I was under the ice and it was warm. March 2nd, that's the day it ends. These writings sparked all manner of speculation, from paranormal theories to suggestions of psychological decline. Her family insisted Lena had never expressed illusions or hallucinations. She had seen a counselor briefly the year before for anxiety, but was never medicated. She functioned well, attended class, and held a job. Whatever those words meant, they offered no concrete answers, only more questions. As the years passed, the search slowed, the tips dried up, and volunteers moved on. But Lena's disappearance remained etched into Sandpoint's collective memory. In 2020, a documentary crew from Spokane featured Lena's case in a regional missing person series. The story drew renewed attention and dredged up old theories. Some believed she was taken, possibly trafficked, citing the I-90 corridor as a known route for such activity. Others thought she may have fallen victim to a local predator, though no pattern of similar disappearances has ever been established in the region. But most troubling is the notion that she left her own will and disappeared into the wilderness. That possibility haunts her family the most. Lena wouldn't have run. Caleb said during the documentary, if she were in trouble, she would have reached out. Something happened out there, and someone knows. To this day, Lena's case remains unsolved. No remains have been found, and no one has been charged. Her file is still listed as active, missing adult in the NamUs registry. Case hashtag MP44106. Sandpoint PD has received no credible leads since 2019. Her disappearance is a chilling reminder that even in small towns where everyone knows each other, people can vanish without a trace, and that the wilderness, for all its beauty, can sometimes hold its secrets too well. March 2nd, 2017, began like any other day in the mountain town of Sandpoint, but by nightfall, it had become a date seared into local memory. The last known hours of Lena Whitmore's life have since been reconstructed piece by piece. A timeline with strange absences, unanswered questions, and unsettling details emerges. Morning hours, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Lena reportedly woke around 7:15 a.m., according to her roommate, Alicia Kern, who recalled hearing the soft hum of their shared coffee maker before leaving for class. Lena was not scheduled to attend any classes that day. Thursdays were her shorter shifts at the Dockside Cafe, beginning at 1 p.m. She was last definitively seen at home at 9:03 a.m., captured by their front door security camera. In the footage, Lena exits briefly to retrieve the mail. She is wearing pajama pants, slippers, and a flannel hoodie. She looks tired, but nothing seems unusual. Her cell phone shows minimal activity during this window, mostly background app pings, and a check-in on a local weather app at 9:47 a.m. The forecast showed a high of 36 degrees Fahrenheit and light flurries in the evening. She did not text or call anyone that morning. At 10:30 a.m., Alicia returned briefly between classes and found Lena sitting at the small kitchen table sketching in her notebook. Lena acknowledged her with a soft "hey," but didn't engage further. Alicia described her demeanor as calm but distant. She seemed somewhere else in her head, she later told police. Midday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. According to phone tower data, Lena left the house around 11:20 a.m. Her cell pinged a nearby tower consistent with the route to town via Pine Street Loop. A neighbor's dashcam confirmed her walking north, wearing a long green parka, dark jeans, boots, and a small canvas bag. Strangely, Lena didn't drive. Her car, a silver 2003 Toyota Corolla, was found parked in its usual spot in front of the house. She almost always went the 1.8 miles to work, especially in cold weather. This decision would later strike investigators as odd. Lena arrived at the Dockside Cafe at approximately 12:50 p.m., nearly 10 minutes early for her shift. Surveillance shows her entering the back employee entrance and exchanging a wave with her manager, Dana Griggs. She worked until 5:42 p.m., a shift that co-workers later described as uneventful but a little off. According to the cafe's assistant manager, Lena seemed distracted. She forgot to ring in 2 orders and was twice found standing in the back hallway staring out the window. When asked if she felt okay, she nodded and returned to work. She wasn't distressed, said Griggs, but it was like she was waiting for something, watching the clock. Evening hours, 5:42 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. At 5:42 p.m., Lena clocked out and exited to the back door, marking the last confirmed sighting of her. The Dockside Cafe security footage captured her walking calmly down First Avenue toward the lakefront, her bag slung over her shoulder. No one followed her, no car pulled up, and no one reported hearing a disturbance. Her chosen direction is striking. Rather than heading toward home or the bus stop, Lena walks south toward the Pend Oreille Bay Trail. The secluded path curves along the icy lake and into wooded terrain. The sun had just dipped behind the mountains, and by 6 p.m., the light was fading fast. At 6:17 p.m., Lena's phone pinged a tower east of the trail, near the water's edge. It was the last known signal before her device went silent. Authorities later confirmed that the phone's battery was 42% at the time of disappearance. It was never recovered. Nightfall, 6:30 p.m. to 12 a.m. By 7 p.m., snow had begun to fall lightly. Lena had not returned home, and her roommate initially thought she had gone to sketch by the lake. But as hours passed with no sign or message, concern mounted. At 10:18 p.m., Alicia texted Lena, "Are you okay? I thought you'd be back by now." The message went undelivered. She followed up with 2 missed calls. At 11:22 p.m., Alicia drove Lena's usual walking path with no result. By midnight, she contacted Lena's mother, and at 12:37 a.m., Lena was reported missing to Sandpoint PD. March 3rd, search begins. Police responded quickly. By 1:30 a.m., officers began canvassing the lake trail and nearby wooded areas using flashlights and heat detection equipment. Officer Patrick Kessler was first on the scene and filed the initial field report, hashtag 17-3049B. He noted clear boot prints near the beginning of the trail, matching the pattern of Lena's shoe, but heavy snow accumulation beyond the first bend made tracking impossible. A formal ground search began at dawn. Volunteers, canines, and drones were deployed by 8 a.m. The search radius extended from the shoreline to the wooded cliffs above, including the path toward the old grain elevators and the decommissioned railroad spur. The only physical evidence recovered was a torn piece of sketchbook paper beneath a bench at the 1.2-mile mark of the trail. The drawing depicted a roughly rendered face, half submerged in water. Though the image bore Lena's style, forensic tests were inconclusive. It was never confirmed to be hers. Her canvas shoulder bag, coat, and phone were never found. Public reaction and law enforcement response. The disappearance shocked the community. Lena was well-liked, if quiet, and had no history of running away or erratic behavior. Within 48 hours, the Bonner County Sheriff's Office coordinated a multi-agency response, assisted by Idaho State Police. A missing persons bulletin was issued on March 4th, and flyers flooded the town. By March 6th, local news station KHQ had covered the story. The media attention brought national exposure, briefly placing Lena's face in national missing persons databases and prompting an influx of tips, many of which led nowhere. Family members appeared in several press briefings. Her mother, Janine, fought back tears as she pleaded for help. If someone has seen her, anything, please come forward. This isn't like Lena. She didn't just walk off. Police Captain Ron Juergens addressed the public directly. We are treating this as an active, ongoing investigation. We have no reason to suspect foul play now, but we're not ruling anything out. Suspicious sightings and red herrings. Two notable reports surfaced in the days that followed, both promising, both ultimately inconclusive. One, the Syringa Heights sighting. On March 5th, a man named Greg Harlan claimed to have seen a woman resembling Lena near a fenced-off construction site on Syringa Heights Road around 7:15 p.m. on the night she disappeared. She looked lost, kept pacing, he told police. He didn't stop or interact, but said her clothing matched the news descriptions. Officers searched the site and the surrounding brush, but found no sign of Lena or her belongings. No cameras captured her image. The tip was filed under unverified witness account, March 5th, and later marked inconclusive. 2. The kayaker's report. On March 8th, a local kayaker named Dana Velt contacted authorities after finding a dark green scarf caught on a submerged log in a narrow inlet near the East Trail. She believed it may have belonged to Lena. Forensics examined the scarf but found no DNA. Lena's mother confirmed her daughter owned a scarf in a similar shade but couldn't confirm it was the same one. The inlet was dragged. No further evidence emerged. Theories and local rumors. As weeks passed, theories multiplied. Some believe Lena may have walked into the woods and succumbed to the elements, disoriented, perhaps suffering from a mental health crisis. But search dogs found no scent trail beyond a lake path, and no clothing or remains were ever located. Unusual even in wilderness cases. Another theory suggested abduction. Sandpoint sits near major highway corridors, and some speculated Lena may have been taken. However, no known vehicles were seen in the area. No screams were reported. No signs of a struggle. Then the stranger's whispers passed through a town late at night. Some spoke of the lake itself. It takes people. That Lena had been drawn to it. These stories were dismissed by law enforcement, but they persisted, especially after a cryptic journal entry surfaced, one that simply read, March 2nd, that's the day it ends. Lingering questions. Why did Lena walk to work that day instead of driving? Why did she go toward the lake alone in the cold twilight? And if she intended harm to herself, why didn't she leave a note, a message, anything? Her cell phone's final ping near the lake suggests that she entered the water, but sonar searches and drone footage found no trace, no icebreak or evidence of entry. The case was quietly moved to the Cold Files desk 5 weeks later. No further leads came, no suspects, no new sightings, and yet something has always felt incomplete. It's been over 8 years since 22-year-old Lena Whitmore vanished without a trace on a snowy March evening along the shores of Lake Pend Oreille. Her disappearance has never been officially solved. No suspect was ever arrested. Nobody was ever found. And despite exhaustive efforts by family, law enforcement, and local search teams, the case remains open and deeply unsettling. What happened to Lena? Sleuths alike, abduction remains one of the leading theories. On the surface, Lena's case doesn't fit the usual patterns of runaway or self-imposed exile. She had no known enemies, no drug habits, no criminal connections. Her life was relatively quiet, but in some ways, that quiet made her all the more vulnerable. The setup, some have viewed Lena's decision to walk to work that morning, uncharacteristically leaving her car behind, as a possible indicator that she was being watched, coerced, or manipulated into changing her routine. Her behavior at the cafe that day was noticeably off, according to coworkers. Several describe her as unusually distracted. Her eyes frequently darted to the windows or the back door. She flubbed simple tasks and seemed mentally absent. Then there's the direction she walked after her shift, toward the isolated trail skirting the lake, not toward home. It's an area known for its scenic views. Still, it also features multiple blind curves, wooded embankments, and abandoned industrial lots. Ideal terrain for someone looking to make a person disappear. Her last confirmed phone ping was near the tree-lined inlet along the eastern curve of the trail, a dead zone for cell service and foot traffic during the colder months. If someone had been following her or lured her there under pretenses, it's entirely feasible that an abduction could have occurred without immediate witnesses. The evidence, or lack thereof, there was no struggle reported, no blood, no torn clothing, but that absence itself is what has fueled abduction theories. A well-planned kidnapping, especially in a remote location, wouldn't necessarily leave evidence. And Lake Pend Oreille is vast, deep enough in places to swallow a body and never give it back. If Lena was taken, and her body disposed in the water or nearby forest, it might explain the total lack of physical evidence. Even more chilling was a tip received 2 months after Lena's disappearance. A trucker traveling west on U.S. Route 2 claimed he saw a young woman resembling Lena at a rest stop in Spokane, Washington, roughly 75 miles from Sandpoint. The woman was with an older man and seemed dazed, according to the driver, who could not snap a photo or interact. Police reviewed surveillance from the rest stop, but found nothing conclusive. The tip was logged and eventually marked unsubstantiated April 27th. Still, for some, it raised disturbing possibilities. Was Lena trafficked? Was she being held somewhere against her will? And if so, is she still out there? Theory 2, voluntary disappearance or mental health crisis. Not all vanishings involve violence. Some culminate in private struggles invisible to those around the missing person. Could Lena have chosen to walk away from her life, or suffered a breakdown that led her into the woods and never returned? A mind in distress? To understand this theory, one must revisit Lena's psychological state. Friends describe her as introspective, artistic, and often lost in her head. While she wasn't formally diagnosed with any mental health condition, she had previously shared feelings of detachment and dissociation during late-night talks with close friends. A former classmate, Danny Rowe, told reporters that Lena had recently begun journaling more obsessively and sketching darker, often surreal images. It was like she was sinking into herself, Danny said. She talked about feeling like time was slipping, like she wasn't here. The most telling artifact supporting this theory came from Lena's journal, found under her mattress weeks after the disappearance. Dated just 1 day before she vanished, the entry reads, "If I walk far enough, will the silence follow? I'm tired of echoes. I want something real." While cryptic, the entry struck men, especially Lena's mother, as more poetic than suicidal. But others, including mental health advocates, saw red flags of existential fatigue and potential depressive ideation. The trail and the lake. If Lena walked the trail that evening to disappear, either start over or end her life, the decision to leave behind her coat, phone, or bag becomes more complicated to explain. None of those items were ever found. If she had entered the lake willingly, surely something would have washed ashore. Search and rescue dogs found no solid scent trail past the first mile of the path. One theory suggests she may have scaled the bluffs, an area difficult to search and prone to rock slides. If she slipped and fell, her body might still be hidden in a ravine or tangle of undergrowth. Alternatively, if Lena had planned a new identity or escape, she would have needed help. Transportation, a fake ID, and cash. No transactions or withdrawals were made from her accounts, and her passport remained untouched. The theory of voluntary disappearance seems to stall under the weight of these logistical holes. But the possibility of psychotic break, one in which she wandered into the wild and succumbed to the elements, remains difficult to dismiss. Theory 3, the unspoken, something else entirely. Then there's a theory that many hesitate to speak aloud, not because they believe it's impossible, but because they fear it might explain too much. Sandpoint is an old place with deeper roots than most realize. Lake Pend Oreille is vast, dark, and in parts more profound than the ocean shelf. Its name derives from French for ear pendant, but local indigenous legends long predate colonization. According to the Kootenai and Kalispel tribes, the lake was sacred and dangerous. There are old tales of the Enemikwi, a spirit that lives beneath the surface. A taker, not a giver. Offerings were once made to it. Silence was required near its waters after dark. When finally turned over to investigators, Lena's sketchbook held more than portraits and nature drawings. She had drawn variations of the same image on several pages. A woman standing at the edge of a lake, her reflection missing. On one page, there's an eerie phrase scrawled faintly beneath the drawing. The lake remembers, and sometimes it calls. To skeptics, this is nothing more than poetic musing, but to others, it echoes the final moments of Lena's day. The walk to the shore, the decision to linger, the sudden disappearance. Could something unseen have drawn her to that spot? Adding to the mystery is a voicemail Lena received 2 days before she vanished. It was recovered from a secondary device she used occasionally to record music. The message, time-stamped at 3:14 a.m., is muffled but chilling. Heavy static, followed by silence. Then a faint whisper, almost ready. The number was untraceable. Investigators dismissed it as a prank. Lena's mother insisted Lena had become increasingly fixated on the idea of crossing over. Not in a religious sense, but in an abstract one. She said the world felt thinner near the lake. Her mother recalled that she felt it breathing. What remains since Lena's disappearance? Sandpoint has tried to move on. The cafe where she worked closed in 2021. Her former house on Pine Street Loop was sold. Yet the lake trail remains unchanged. Locals still hike it, though fewer do so after dark. Some swear the wind sounds different there now. Quieter, heavier, as if holding its breath. The official status of the case remains active, unresolved. Every few years, another theory, a blurry sighting, a forgotten journal, a new podcast episode resurfaces. But there are no definitive answers, only shadows. Closing thoughts. The disappearance of Lena Whitmore continues to haunt those who knew her, and even many who didn't. Her story has become a tapestry of contradictions. Physical calm and internal unrest, logical clues and surreal imagery, community outreach and investigative stagnation. What happened that night on the shores of Lake Pend Oreille? Was Lena the victim of a calculated abduction, pulled into something far darker than she could have anticipated? Did she suffer a silent crisis and walk willingly into the cold wilderness never to return? Or was there something else at work, something we struggle to name because we fear it might be real? One woman, one trail, nobody, no trace. What do you think happened to Lena Whitmore? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel for more content relating to horrors and missing cases.